Andy Kotelnicki is returning to Kansas football. Why this move might just save the program. Let's talk about it.
Hey, what's good, y'all? It's your boy JD6 here. I'm with my man. Shout out to KC Sports Authority. Make sure y'all go check that podcast out, man.
You heard the man. And welcome into another episode of the KC Sports Authority podcast, live here on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter right now with the news of the day. Andy Kotelnicki has returned to the Kansas football coaching staff as the associate head coach. A lot to unravel there, joined by my co-host Austin Eckert and special guest Daniel Corwright of the Kansas Nation, kansasnation.com. Fellas, welcome in. Excited to jump into this one. I apologize for the later start than what we originally planned. My son was so excited about this news today that he woke up from his sleep to run out here and make sure that I was ready to go and delayed us 45 minutes. So we're ready to get into it. But let's start with that news. Andy Kotelnicki, the Mad Hatter, the king of offense, the guy that put Kansas football on the map, some are saying, over the last couple of years, is back on the Kansas sidelines as the associate head coach. Daniel, let me just kick it over to you. First thought went through your mind today when you saw that headline?
First, I'll address this. You're going to need to change that intro. JD6, no longer.
We have been discussing that.
You hit up Zeke Marshall or Cole Ballard, whoever it's going to be. Whoever it's going to be. Yeah, man. First thoughts. There's been rumblings about this for quite a while. I mean, if you're a true sicko, there's some true sickos out there who are constantly looking at like flight logs, being like, "Oh, there's a plane that went to Pennsylvania from Lawrence. What's this? Oh, I heard Lance texted Andy and all this stuff." And I didn't really buy into it at first because I was like, Andy's gonna have such a big asking price, and KU doesn't really have the money to be throwing around like that, but by some grace of God, this happened, and he's back. And you know, he was, like you said, sort of the engineer behind the rebuild, right? I mean, there's so many different pieces. Obviously, you get Lance in with his leadership. JD comes in with less, and you know, they obviously do some great things. But Andy was the engine that pushed that motor forward, or push that train forward, with his style of offense that we haven't really seen out of anybody, right? I mean, obviously it was so good that a team like Penn State wanted him to come over there, and he did a pretty good job over at Penn State. I know Penn State fans really liked him at first, and then, you know, sort of fizzled out there, but there was a lot of weird things going on over at Penn State. But it's going to be interesting, the role that he's going to be playing, because he's coming in as the associate head coach. So that means Jim Zebrowski is still going to be the offensive coordinator. What's an associate head coach compared to an assistant head coach compared to I don't know, there's deputy head coach or whatever. It's all semantics. It's all
like the co-offensive coordinators we had a year ago.
A lot of that
defensive
stuff.
Coordinators.
Yeah, it's just so they can pay him more. But it'll be interesting. I mean, a little piece of me, and I'm hearing this a lot from, you know, some other people, is that this could potentially be maybe a head coach in waiting type of thing. So Kansas doesn't have to go on this, you know, countrywide hunt whenever Lance does decide to hang him up, right? I mean, you look at Utah and what they did. They said, hey, we got our guy when Kyle Whittingham wants to retire, and they thought Whittingham was going to retire in 5 or 6 years. Turns out, obviously, he's going to Michigan, but you know, they kind of were getting ahead of the curve and saying, all right, let's get our guy in here just in case something does happen, just in case Lance does decide to hang them up. Then we'll have our guy. Everyone knows who he is. That's going to really do a lot of good things in terms of, you know, retention, right? Because you have a guy who could potentially be taking over in that leadership role as the head coach, who's already in the system and already knows a lot of these guys. You look at a place like Iowa State right now, who they lost Matt Campbell. They didn't have a backup plan, and now they have 16 guys on their roster currently, right? So, I mean, in terms of, you know, just setting yourself up for success and really planning for the future, I like this a lot. And it's good to have that mind back in that room and to kind of mold these people. I mean, you saw all the fun pre-snap that he was doing. You saw all of the option that he had in all those different wrinkles and that fun stuff that you just love to watch in that 3-year stretch that he was here as offensive coordinator. That's what KU has been missing over the last couple of years with Grimes and Zabrowski. Because Zabrowski, he's a disciple of Kotelnicki, but it just didn't really feel the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was a little bit more vanilla flavored, a little bit more predictable, whereas Andy was the most unpredictable play caller in the world, at least in that 3-year stretch, right? I mean, he brought Kansas, I think he had 2 of the top 3 scoring offenses in Kansas football history in 2022 and 2023. He won Offensive Coordinator of the Year, I believe, on 24/7 Sports, voting the top Offensive Coordinator of the Year back in 2023 or whatever that was. And then you look at the numbers in terms of, scoring percentage, in terms of quarterback efficiency, in terms of offensive efficiency. He brought it from within the hundreds to a top 5 offense in the nation those 2 years. So getting that guy back in this room where he seemingly loved it, right? Obviously Penn State is such a glorious job, and it's, you're playing in the CFP. But at the same time, he's going back to his roots. He was with Lance back in the Whitewater days, right? He knows all these guys who are on the staff. He lived in Lawrence at one point. So this is going to be really interesting to see. I'm over the moon about it, man.
Yeah. Look, super excited for this, especially on a day where, the transfer portal window is open. Guys are declaring left and right. KU's losing about half their roster between graduation and transfer portal names so far. And again, some of those guys could come back, but huge news. Austin, let me ask you this. If I said going into this weekend, which headline story do you think is a bigger deal? Andy Kotelnicki returns to Kansas. Darren Peterson does not show up on injury report.
Oh,
because I'm leaning football.
Yeah, Andy Kotelnicki coming back to Kansas is a bigger deal. I mean, look, I'm over the whole DP situation. Like, obviously, he's not on the injury report as we saw earlier. So I'm elated to see that. So hopefully he remains healthy throughout the rest of the season. But no, this is a bigger storyline because, like Daniel was saying, he's been a missing ingredient the past 2 seasons, and him coming back is huge. And I'm curious to see too what his role will be in terms of what he's going to do with the offense. I'm sure. I said it earlier in the day that I'm sure that they'll take his thoughts into account for, what they want to do on offense moving forward. And I'm over the moon about it too, and couldn't be more excited.
Do you guys think, this is my assumption, not knowing how things work behind the scenes and in those offices, but the initial talk in social media was that this was a combined effort between Gerard, Travis Goff, Lance Leipold, coach staff, all that. I think it's a safe assumption that this move wouldn't happen without him talking with the rest of his staff. Not that he needs permission from Zabrowski or even Matt Lubick. Hey, do you want to bring? I think they probably first off would probably be all for it, knowing that the trio of those guys had the success they did in 2 years. But it feels like this would be a move that everyone would be on board with to make it happen, and that's probably why it took another week or so from the initial conversations of, there's a plane heading to Penn State right now to have conversations with them. But do you think this would be a staff-wide unanimous decision, or would Leipold, or do you think, or did Goff even go, hey, we're going to do anything possible to bring this guy back, Lance, and you're going to just figure it out?
Man, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, you have to think that it'd be a no-brainer, right? I mean, if you could get a top-tier Big Ten offensive coordinator who used Kansas as a stepping stone to get to that higher level, and then to be able to get him back, I think it's probably a short conversation. I'm sure Lance probably brought it up to a lot of the staff members, and a lot of staff members, they did work with Kotelnicki, right? I mean, you look at guys like Terry Samuel, look at guys like Chris Simpson, right? Obviously Chris Simpson's on the other side of the ball, but all those guys knew each other, and Zabrowski was with them in the Whitewater days too. So you kind of have that big 3 in terms of offensive minds in Lance, Zabrowski, and Kotelnicki, who all kind of moved up in the ranks together on the same teams. So you'd have to think this probably was a no-brainer. I'm sure once they saw that Kotelnicki was James Franklin got fired and they were clearing house and all the different kind of stuff, you had to think that was probably the first thing that went through their mind is shoot him a call.
Yeah, especially since his name did pop up in head coaching vacancies across the country. Don't know what went on with the UConn there, because there was a thought that he would be a finalist there. But I'm super pumped he's back, because honestly, after the way this last week has gone with the transfer portal, watching the ridiculousness of college football as it's falling apart in the offseason. I know football's still going on, but as the roster movement, the coaching decisions, all that change, I was coming to a point where I don't feel like I had any excitement going into next year for Kansas football, knowing the guys were losing, the guys that are leaving the program behind, the guys that are going to the transfer portal. Now, again, some of those guys could come back. I was not feeling very optimistic that next year would be an entertaining or fun season. This, to me, I was telling a buddy earlier today, I think this really breathes I almost feel like this program was on life support after these last 2 years. Kotelnicki leaves. It's very obvious that Lance Leipold at KU is better with Kotelnicki than without. With Kotelnicki, this is a top 10 offense, total offense back-to-back years, top 25 in most every category. Jeff Grimes comes in. They're still decent at times, but we saw how much everything fell off. This year, we saw pockets of it, but just the skill positions and talent just wasn't quite the same. Offensive line was worse. You didn't have, Devin Neal in your backfield. So I feel like this, no brainer. But to me, this was kind of like the program saving move that had to happen and needed to happen. Up until this was announced today, there was no conversation publicly about coaching changes, off-season program changes, scheme changes, anything like that. And I feel like as a fan, that kept me feeling like next year was going to be more of the last 2 years. So after the 2 years we've had, and we've talked about this with basketball, which was like this year felt like, even with the excitement of Darren Peterson, expectations were going to be tampered down because of the way the last 2 years went. Like, it just sucked a lot of the joy and fun out of it. But getting Kotelnicki back, especially pairing him with Zeke Marshall, who was recruited to come play his offense, has me reignited and excited for next season. Now, there's a large uphill battle this offseason when it comes to roster reconstruction. The entire defense is basically gutted. You got to retool your offensive line a bit, figure out your skill position players. Half your running back room's gone. So there's a lot they have to do, but this move alone could save the program from continuing the several steps backward they've taken in the last 2 years. And this could be the make or break in 5 years from now, Kansas still being a relevant, not just Big 12 team, but a relevant power school to a team that is bottom of the Big 12 year in and year out, like we've been accustomed to. So I'm super excited about this move. There'll be a lot of information over the next couple of weeks comes out as they hold press conference and all that about what the roles are going to be. Cause all of our friends in the media, they're going to be asking those questions. All right, what does this mean? Is he running the offense? How much say does he have? Is this Zebrowski's offense with Kotelnicki advising him? Is this Kotelnicki's offense, but Zebrowski's calling the plays? I know we were joking earlier, talking about the too many cooks in the kitchen, and I texted you. I was like, well, maybe this is Kotelnicki's menu. Like, he's going to create the menu, and Zebrowski's going to go read off the specials to the table. Like, hey, so he's just relaying what Kotelnicki. I don't know. Who knows? I'm sure between all of them, they'll figure that out. But the head coach in waiting possibility, the associate head coach, there will be some responsibility. And I think one thing I would hope comes with that, maybe some of that responsibility could be like in-game adjustments or game management. I have talked at length about, I think Leipold's biggest weakness as a head coach the last 2 years we've seen is just in-game management. They talk about how well they come prepared for games, but then the game happens and it just feels like we're a lost cause at times. So maybe Kotelnicki will share some of that. I don't know. National media probably not as excited about this move as us because Penn State just didn't quite have the offense juggernaut that they were expected to be. I've got a close friend of mine that's a huge Penn State guy, and he was like, man, this KU Kotelnicki guy, he sucks. Drew Aller, he got worse under Kotelnicki. They don't run the ball enough. There's too much fancy stuff. All that to be said, this is a good move for sure. Other thoughts on the move in general, some of the domino effects that might come of this? Anybody?
I
Because
mean,
if not, I want to get into transfer portal for sure.
yeah, I mean, just some other thought, like you said, we talked about this, and I was talking to another journalist, Henry Greenstein, Lawrence Journal, World, and KSports.com, the California kid, if you will. He had said something about just maybe there's a little bit of a thought of, are there too many cooks in the kitchen, and could there be potentially a power struggle of, because Zabrowski was under Kotelnicki for so many years, right? And now, in theory, this is Zabrowski's offense. And if Kotelnicki comes in and says, "Hey, I need you to do it like this," will Zabrowski say, "Hey, this is actually my offense"? Now, we know Jim Zabrowski, and we've seen him in press conferences, and I've talked to him personally. He's a fantastic guy, and he doesn't strike me as that. But it's really easy for that kind of power struggle to kind of present itself, even when you don't mean it to, right? And you have other guys in there like Matt Lubick, who was brought in to really mold this and kind of was, another one of those disciples from Kotelnicki, was with KU, was the co-OC, and, obviously went and did some other stuff. And he came back, and we thought he was going to have a much bigger impact on the offense than he did. And really, he implemented option offenses wherever he was, and then we didn't really see a lot of option this year. That's if you break it down to the simplest thing, like that was what was fun. Yeah. My favorite thing in the world, up there with puppies and rainbows, was watching Jalen Daniels run the option. It was so much fun, and we just never saw it again after Kotelnicki left, right? We saw Jeff Grimes, who had the most vanilla-flavored offense and didn't understand that there was a middle of the field that you could throw it to. And then you had Zabrowski, who just didn't really utilize it that much, right? There were shades of a Kotelnicki-esque offense, but it just wasn't the same, right? So it'll be interesting to see what his role exactly is, right? Because like I was saying, associate head coach is kind of a vague, weird term. That's sort of this new term that we don't really know what it means. How much say is he going to have, right? Zabrowski, I would assume, is still going to be calling the plays. But what's going to be Andy Kotelnicki's role during the week on game day? How much is he in the headset talking to whoever the quarterback is, talking to Z, talking to Lance? I mean, what's the role going to look like? We have absolutely no idea, because he got hired today. So I'm sure he doesn't know quite yet.
Sure.
And they'll figure it out, because having that mind in those meeting rooms, just having him, work on a whiteboard, I think is really going to be beneficial.
And the players are excited about it. I mean, we saw several key profile former players today, retweet and tweet about how good this is to get him back and how excited they are to see what happens next year. And again, that's not to say anything negative about the current coaching staff of guys already here, but that tells you like how much of an impact a guy like Kotelnicki had on those guys while they were here, but how much of an impact he can have on the program as a whole. But yeah, it kind of reminds me a bit of The Office, for those of you that are Office fans, when Michael and Jim are both named co-managers and nobody has any idea of who do I go to for this. Nope, I'm day-to-day. He's big picture. But what's day-to-day, what's big picture? So again, we'll find all that out over the next couple of weeks for sure. And as the offseason goes, maybe it's a little bit of like the Chiefs, where Matt Nagy's offensive coordinator, but everything stops with Andy Reid. Starts and stops there. Different situation, but could be something along there. But the other impact I think this will have, though, beneficially, is the transfer portal. Again, like I said, coming into today, I was not optimistic at all. You lose some very key players. The defense gets gutted. You have to retool your offensive weapons. You lose an All-American caliber starting center in Bryce Foster. Your backup, who redshirted, and Tyler Mercer, announces he's going to transfer. So you got to retool the offensive line. You lose a couple tight ends. You lose half your running back room. You graduate out a couple wide receivers. So there's a lot of missing pieces to this roster for sure. You've still got a pretty solid incoming freshman class. But they're going to have to hit the portal hard. And I do think Kotelnicki coming here, the timing couldn't be better. It's early enough in the portal talk that I think he will be able to grab a few guys that are just looking forward to playing in his style of offense, whether that's running backs, wide receivers, so on and so forth. Because I think you said it with Zabrowski, it just didn't look the same this last year. I think some of that was offensive line not playing up to what we saw the last couple of years before that, as well as skill positions just not being what that core was before. So big uphill battle for sure. Let's talk about the portal. Defense. Nobody in this linebacker room left over other than the incoming freshmen, a couple, there's a couple guys, but all your big names, you already lose. Wow, I'm going blank. Bengali Kamara, who had he had 4 full seasons at Kansas, might go down as one of the top 3 linebackers in the last 30, 40 years. The athleticism, the skills that he had. But you lose your leading tackler in Trey Lathan, who had 1 more year of eligibility, a guy that could have been the core of this defense for next year. Now, again, transfer portal means these guys could come back. They could just be looking to renegotiate, because that's a thing in college athletics now, just renegotiating deals. So enter the portal, go find out what you're worth, come back and give them a chance to match it. Joseph Sipp, we saw enter the transfer portal today, a guy that had the potential to be a big impact this last year, injured, redshirts the entire season, kind of was paving the way to be the guy next year. He enters the portal, got a couple corners in the portal. You graduate out some guys on your defensive line. So this defense is gutted. A defense that already was not good this last year, a defense that the fan base was hoping to see the other coaching change happen with maybe the removal of DK McDonald or encouraging him to go look elsewhere and finding somebody else to come in. But the portal has been rough. Now there's several guys coming on visits from different positions, but how are you guys feeling right now with the state of this roster day one of the official portal season? What's the concern level?
Man, I'd say my concern level is about an 8 out of 10. I mean, is that fair? I don't know. I mean, 8 out of 10.
Well, it's hard to judge that nowadays because we don't have any of this information.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's hard to tell, but I mean, like, for me, it's an 8. I mean, it's not a 9 or a 10, but and we were talking about it a little bit before we started recording how, compared to other programs, Kansas doesn't really have it horrible, but Keegan, you brought up Kansas being the 6th team in the Big 12 that has number amount of players in the portal right now. So, I mean, I think if we're going to go into the portal and grab some guys, we got to start with the defensive line. We already got one guy in Jabril Conde. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. But, really talented player. I'm looking forward to seeing how he does. But it all starts with the defensive line. And then obviously the linebackers, like you said, Keegan. I mean, we got all 3 of those guys gone now. So, it's just we got to start up front, and then wherever we go after that is the direction that they go. But it has to start with the defensive line if we're going to go and get players from the transfer portal.
Dan, rank for me your top 3 positional needs for the portal.
Yeah.
There was one day on the show where I was in a mood and I said special teams. That's probably not right. Even though we don't have anybody right now, right, to kick or punt the ball. And I'm a big special teams is just as important guy, but at the same time, like, you look at the linebacker room, there's
Kansas would have been in a bowl game last year if not for catching a ball on the 1 yard line.
True. Yeah. I mean,
and beating the streak against K-State.
Jameel Croft Jr., that one stings.
That was a big, yeah.
Laith Marjan missed that field goal at the Arizona game. That one stings. I mean, there's a lot of special teams hasn't been kind to KU in the past, but right now, before today, I would have said probably safety, just because you're losing a lot of safeties. You're losing guys like Laquan Robinson. You're losing a ton of guys in that safety room, and you're bringing back Mason Ellis, right? But at the same time, like, you have like Brandon Schmelzley, who's the number 2 strong safety right now, who has never played, and I think he might have been a walk-on, or if not, I think he might have been a scholarship kind of guy, but he's not ready or there yet to be that second caliber, that second team kind of guy. So safety is really important. I think Kansas really needs to go hard on the safety position. And then after today, I'd say probably number 1 is linebackers. So those are flipped, where it's linebackers right now. Linebacker room, Kansas has 3 linebackers on their roster right now. 2 of them are true freshmen who aren't on campus yet, right? With Joe Credit and Josh Galbraith, who's from Lawrence.
The local standout.
What's that?
Said the local standout.
Yeah. By the way, the kid's a monster, right? He's a freak athlete. I've watched him play. He is unbelievably good, and that's the kind of talent that you can see making an impact, right away. Maybe I'm not going to say all Big 12 guy next year,
sure,
but he's the kind of guy who can, rack up 20 some odd tackles, maybe a couple TFLs, that kind of thing, maybe a sack and a half. Nothing crazy, but at the same time, for a freshman, that's really good, right? And then you have Malachi Curvey, who was on the squad this year, and everybody on the defense really, really likes him. Those are your three, right? And if you look at what has happened, because today is the official opening, and this is something that I've been kind of using to calm myself down as well as other KU fans, is that up until today, it's all bad because Kansas literally couldn't go out and get anybody until today. So you had all these guys intending on going to the portal leading up to this, and you only got one guy in the portal, which was Jabril Conde. The only reason that we got him is because he's from Division II and they have different rules. Their transfer portal opened up sooner, right? Kansas put out an offer to a guy from Minnesota Duluth who's a tight end who I don't think is going to come just because he's a legacy guy from Minnesota. But at the same time, it's all bad. And it's about to be all good, right? You're hearing about a number of different guys who are going to be on official visits starting tomorrow, with Landon Watson from Kentucky, who I'm really high on.
Yeah, anytime you have an SEC linebacker looking to come this way, I'll take that.
Yeah, 100%. You know, he went to TCU first, didn't play, went to Marshall, balled out, went to Kentucky, got a little bit of playing time. He looked really good. I watched a little bit of some of his highlights that I really enjoyed. So right now, he's going to be on campus starting tomorrow. You also got a guy like Quincy Davis from New Mexico State, who is a fantastic player in that linebacker room. So you had the linebackers set up. Nobody's signed yet. So that's one thing that I will credit Lance Leipold and company with, is I think the best thing that they've done in their time here at Kansas is A, portal retention, and B, getting talented guys from the portal. This is the first year that we're really seeing the portal retention not there, and you're really only losing two true starters on this squad in Trey Lathan and Lyric Rawls. Everybody else are kind of depth pieces, right? You're seeing guys like Caleb Redd, Joseph Sipp, who redshirted this year. Seeing a number of different guys who you go, oh yeah, I've heard their name before, and I think they played a little bit of special teams, right? So the sheer number of guys is big, but in terms of impact quality players, you're really losing two. John Kamara is another one that
that one hurt a little bit.
That one's tough, but looking at John Kamara, who everyone says is the best athlete on this Kansas squad, I'm looking at Josh Galbraith. They're the same player. They look the same. They're both lanky and can jump out of the gym if they're playing basketball, I guess. But there's ridiculous athlete kind of guy as Josh Galbraith. He can fit into that, John Kamara type of slot, I think, and he could really be an impact player. So that one really stings, and you had guys who had all the potential in the world to really be that number one who are deciding to leave, right? So you're really only losing two starters. Yeah, Tyler Mercer, that one stings because you got to think that he was the predecessor to obviously Bryce Foster, but you have that kid from Texas who's 6'7", 350 some odd pounds, who plays left guard. That size at left guard is unbelievable. So you could potentially think about slotting him to left guard and maybe moving Amir Herring to center, because he's done some snapping in the past and he has meaningful playing time, meaningful playing experience with Kansas. He's just moving over a position essentially. So with the guys, with what we've heard, and everybody who is already setting up visits, and if they all do pan out, I'm not saying that they all will, but if they do all pan out, it looks to me as though Kansas is taking the right steps in order to fill the needs that they need. Now, with David McComb, that one's interesting because Lance Leipold came out and said in a press conference that we are not going to be looking for another quarterback. We are super confident in our quarterback room. And then all of a sudden, you lose a guy who's going to be in that competition. Now you got to think potentially, are they going to go out and get a transfer portal quarterback, right? It doesn't have to be a starter. It could be like what K-State did with the UConn player a couple of years ago, where they got a transfer portal quarterback from UConn while Avery Johnson was still there, not to try to take his spot, but to have a veteran presence in that locker room and to, add just a different wrinkle to that quarterback room. You just need to add depth there. So I think Kansas might go and get a depth piece at quarterback. I think they're still really happy with Isaiah Marshall and Cole Ballard. Again, whoever wins that spot. But that's where Kotelnicki comes in, where now you have Kotelnicki back in that offensive room, and everybody's been saying, man, imagine getting Zeke Marshall in a Kotelnicki offense. Well,
Now we might.
Now we might. So.
Well, Austin, let's look at running backs here. So LaShawn Williams graduate gone. Daniel Highshot graduates gone. They had a good group of young freshmen and incoming guys that they were excited about. Justin Thurman being one of those guys we haven't really seen yet, but super looking forward to it. But Harry Stewart enters the transfer portal a couple days ago. Johnny Thompson announced that a couple weeks ago. So this running back room is completely wide open. Thoughts on what type of guys we need to see there now, knowing that Kotelnicki's back and whatever influence he does have on this offense, which is still going to be a lot. Like running back's a huge position of need, as well as wide receiver. You're bringing back Cam Pickett. You've got Keaton Kubeka, a guy that I love. I'm really good guy. I'm super excited that he's going to have an opportunity to have a big role this year. But you've got two key positions on the offense that if you're going to retool around Zeke, he doesn't have many weapons to play with right now.
Yeah, no, he doesn't, and especially the running back. It looks completely bleak right now. So I feel like KU has no choice but to go in the portal and potentially find a starter that's played maybe for 2 or 3 seasons. Somebody who has experience related maybe to Power 5 football, I guess. And I think that'd be ideal. And, you look at the track record with Kotelnicki and running backs. I mean, Jarrett Patterson from Buffalo. I mean, I think that's a forgotten name. And I don't think people have talked about, how great he was at Buffalo, nowadays. And I mean, he was unbelievable. And, obviously, the running back play, under Kotelnicki with Devin Neal, obviously he was incredible, even in his senior year with Grimes, did really well. But yeah, you got to find a guy in the portal that has, maybe a year or two and hopefully maybe 3 years of playing experience, maybe somebody that's leaving a program that maybe has a head coaching change, perhaps, someone like that. But, it's got to be, somebody that, can understand the culture, of what Lance is trying to do here. And, somebody that has experience, I think would be the direction to go in.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty safe assumption too, that if Zeke or even if Cole Ballard gets the start, it doesn't really matter. It does feel like we're going to be a little bit more run heavy play style, not just with the option, but the quarterback keep, the RPOs, that the running game is going to be a big impact. And so finding guys you can mix in, like we saw what this team looked like with a 1A and a 1B. Now Devin Neal, took over as the main guy, but Highshot had a really good season 3 years ago before he got hurt. Yeah. And you had 2 guys on your team on pace to rush for 1,000 yards and 10 plus touchdowns. So we know that the capabilities of an offense like that are there for sure. Just got to fill the stable for sure with weapons. But I think what gives me a little bit of optimism with the portal is every single team is going through this now. There is not a team in college football that does not see their roster get gutted after bowl games happen and have to retool. Heck, we're seeing with Texas right now where they're basically not kicking guys off the program, but they're basically saying, hey, you need to leave because we need to free up X amount of cash to go get somebody who's better than you. So you're going to see a lot of these names move around. We're seeing a guy like Brendan Sorsby, as of right now, #1 ranked player in the portal, could earn $6 to $7 million in college to go play quarterback for somebody. Bo Pribula didn't have a tremendously good year at Mizzou, but Texas Tech's got all sorts of money.
Yeah, no,
they're going after everybody.
I'll tell you right now, he's going to go to Tech. His girlfriend's playing volleyball there, so
yeah, it's happening for sure. But you've got all these big names that are going around. You've got all these big time programs. It's funny listening to some of the national conversation on college football right now. That's like, now that everybody has an equal shot at the rules, are we surprised that Georgia and Alabama aren't as dominant as they've always been? Not to say that those teams were acting illegally when it came to recruiting, but the playing field is definitely as even as it probably ever has been in college football. And while there's still a lot of mess, especially on the college basketball side with rules, you do feel like it's retooling your roster every year for that upcoming year. Less about building your program for the future because you just can't guarantee, like the Desert Edge guys. Those guys, if not only do they all leave Kansas, half of them have already entered the portal again from their second school year. So you DJ Warner also in the portal again. So there's no loyalty in college football. You're building the roster year by year for that upcoming season. But it's nice to know that at least every school in the country is having that same problem. Sure would be nice, though, to to pull some success with what Indiana's doing in Curt Cignetti, where they seem to play for him and they don't leave, because you'd like to build that. You need that year after year repetition with your guys to grow into it. And this is a big offseason. First time Leipold's been here that he doesn't have, Jalen Daniels, doesn't have the core of guys that he came in with. Now, again, most of those guys he didn't even recruit, but this is really the first full offseason that he has to not just start from scratch, but go and put it all together with 100% of those being his guys. And it's going to be a challenge for sure. I think over the next 2-3 weeks, we're going to see a lot and hear a lot. And then, of course, when spring practice happens, it'll be the second transfer portal window. Guys will leave, guys will come. Just thinking back to last year with Burnett, excited about the tight end room, and then he never even really makes it here, takes off. And then I think, didn't he end up injured the entire year anyway, wherever he transferred to? I can't remember.
He went back to Arizona.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He went from Arizona to Kansas and then back to Arizona. And I think that we didn't hear a lot about him. I do believe he got injured.
I feel like he missed most of the year with injury, but
that's going to change now because there's no spring portal. So
but that's right.
Everything's going to change. Like the rules are, everything is going to feel more rushed. I think. What'd
you guys think of Nick Saban's comments the other day at the Rose Bowl? Did you guys see it?
What did he say?
Well, so him, Herb Street, and all of them, they were talking about, the portal window, talking about Dan Lanning's comments about, the schedule, moving everything up and having not only the season end on January 1st, but having the portal doesn't open until the final game is over. And then it lines everything up over the rest of winter break for guys to move around. But I thought Saban had some interesting comments on if it was up to him on how to restructure, like switching the schedule up. One is Ole Miss, perfect example right now. Head coach takes it down to the wire as long as he can hold out to make a decision. Lane Kiffin leaves with the hope that he's leaving for a better opportunity. To me, his move from Ole Miss to LSU just is stupid in my opinion. I don't care how much money you have at your disposal or how much money they're going to pay you. Situationally, it does not feel any different to me. And not only that, now they're doing it without you. You have half of the coaching staff that's in limbo of who's going to LSU, who's not. Can any of them coach next week? Can they not coach next week? The rules, and we're seeing this in college basketball now too, with teams trying to go after G League players and guys that never played a minute in the NBA but got drafted and things like that, which somebody was talking about on a podcast this week, not to get sidetracked, but they were like, Baylor's going to go get this guy from the G League. I'm pretty sure we saw the NCAA president come out and say that they are not going to allow any player that has signed an NBA contract or a G League contract to come play college. I don't know the details of it, but it's a wild time we live in with college sports and the lack of rules and the lack of structure. While it does give the playing field as equal as possible to everybody out there, it also feels like it just gives the players all the power in the world to dictate their future in a way that probably isn't healthy for the sport. Now, don't give these guys any hard time for it because they're going after as much money as possible as they can. Now, again, Brendan Sorsby, he's not making $7 million in the NFL unless he becomes this tremendous NFL talent quarterback next year. So if he can go make $6 to $7 million this year anywhere in the country, he's going to take it, and he should take it. But the game is changing. It's evolving. The rules are getting mucky, and the identity of college athletics seems to be slipping by the wayside. I think Dan Lanning said it perfectly. He's like, hey, we're basically a minor league for the NFL, but the NFL has no partnership with us as far as structure and all that. So it's messy out there.
Yeah. There should be, and Sean and I talked about this on our show a while ago, just there probably should be a commissioner. But I think that obviously there should be some sort of board for each individual conference, right? They have commissioners, right? We have Brett Yormark, who has done a fantastic job, but you need somebody to kind of overlook that. I like the idea of moving everything back in terms of the college football playoff for a couple of reasons. Number one is because of the rest versus rust thing, right? Teams with buys in the college football playoff and the new format are 1-7 overall, with Indiana being the only exception, and Indiana is just an absolute wagon, and Curt Cignetti is a psychopath who gets guys just amped up constantly, and they beat up on poor old scrappy underdog Alabama. But he's the exception, right? So I think that, to me, should be the number one reason why they should move everything back, is because you're essentially going 3 weeks, close to a month, without playing a football game. So that, like I said, there's the rest versus rust there, and then also ending the season on January 1st. Now you don't have guys who are going to be entering the transfer portal, right? We just heard today that there's an Ole Miss quarterback planning on entering the transfer portal, but he's going to stay with Ole Miss throughout the rest of the college football playoffs. But we saw last year, Pagula entered the portal and left the team before they were out of the college football playoffs when he was at Penn State. So that needs to be changed, and I don't know, teams shouldn't be punished for making the college football playoff. At least kids shouldn't be punished for making the college football playoff if they're wanting to enter the transfer portal. So they need to move everything back for sure, and then it allows more time, I guess, for kids to make that decision, because they can't move it forward because of enrollment, right? They don't want to enroll late, so you have to do it in that winter portal. Should there be a summer portal? I mean, I don't know. That could be a conversation for later. I kind of like the fact that there's only one right now, but I think I agree with Nick Saban that it does everything needs to be pushed back. It's getting too stretched out, and there's many millions of dollars, billions of dollars in TV money and revenue and all that kind of stuff that's being floated around. It's going to be really hard to get everybody on page to be able to do that. But that is something that I think needs to happen.
Well, not only that, you're competing even more with the NFL in the wrong way. Like, college football should wrap up and be done before NFL playoffs even get started. So, like, this should be like this weekend we are going through right now should be the final weekend of college football, so that everything is done before the NFL playoffs. And like, there's just enough of an overlap that it's muddy. And move the season up a week. Everybody starts week 0 now. You knock out a bye week. Maybe you knock out one non-conference game, so everybody goes to shoot. They can just all go to a 10-game schedule, knock 2 weeks off because they want to expand the playoffs anyway. And now you treat those last couple of weeks differently, and everything's wrapped up. But yeah, it's messy. The college football playoff expansion feels like it's going to happen. I know Brett Yormark today said he strongly encourages the 16-team playoff, and no matter what the number is, somebody's going to feel left out for sure. I think this year's a good example of, do you put the better program in, a Notre Dame versus a James Madison or a Tulane? If they went by other standards, Miami wouldn't have made the cut, and look what they did this week. So it's messy for sure. But if you could restructure the season as a whole with the intention of building to the playoffs, there's an avenue there to maybe not fix all the off the field stuff with roster movement, but to at least fix the schedule to a way where guys aren't checked out as soon as their season ends. Because if their season ends early, they're done. Like we talked about this a couple weeks ago, fans were pissed that KU didn't want to go to a bowl game. Now, did we deserve to go to a bowl game? No, but you had the opportunity to, and at least to the public, there was nothing from KU side of, we really thought about it. We just, because guys are checked out. They've had their exit meetings. The season's over. Some of them, have been done with school for weeks. Some of them are, graduate guys that are just here because they're on scholarship, and so they're taking advantage of whatever time they have. And you move everything up, and everybody has the same time frame. There's none of this, like the NBA moratorium period where you can agree to a deal in practice, but they can't sign it until after the moratorium. It's like there's got to be something there to line up to where, teams are not punished for going deeper into the college football playoff or to play a bowl game versus the teams that lose out, don't make it, or skip a bowl game, and all their guys can start declaring and start having conversations, behind closed doors. But it's a mess. Doesn't look like it's going to get better anytime soon. But yeah. Any other thoughts on football, or you guys want to talk any basketball?
I don't think I got any more thoughts on football. I mean, I'm excited that DP's coming back tomorrow.
Hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
I'm still expecting early afternoon tomorrow. I mean, I know they changed about 3 weeks ago. They changed the reporting rules. So you had to do it a day before, and then I think 90 minutes before tip-off, they have to have another. But wasn't on the report today. Self said he looked good this week, looked more explosive. Um, I have said it enough now that I am treating this season as if Darren Peterson's a unicorn. He's magical. He's mythical. Until I see him with my own two eyes, I'm not going to believe he's real. And even if he does play tomorrow, like I think we need to see him play 3, 4, 5, 6 games in a row without hesitation, without limitations, without a minute's crunch on him to feel really good that he's here for the long haul. And despite all that, KU has not looked half bad without him. So I do think there's still a small concern of what's the play style like with it. Now, obviously, this team's ceiling much higher and their floor much higher with him than without. But we've seen how these guys have kind of gelled without him. I mean, Melvin Council does not have the game he has, does not have the confidence he has if he's deferring to a Darren Peterson as often as we think this team will when he's playing. Trey White also has stepped up in tremendous ways. Cole Rosario is starting to get a little bit of momentum. So it's a good problem to have, getting your star player back, potential number one draft pick. But also at the same time, I think a lot of the fan base is split on how excited should we be that Darren Peterson's here versus let me see him play enough and then I'll let that come back in, because these last 6 weeks have been exhausting. Just the back and forth day by day, Bill Self not really being very clear in how he's communicating on what's going on. Darren's camp having more control than we'd like to see. Darren maybe letting some of that get into his head. All these things that have been thrown out there. The guy's a competitor. He's one of the best in the sport. He wants to get out there and play. But how much of all the off the field stuff, has maybe caused him to be hesitant. And it just feels like until he does it consistently and plays a couple of games, I don't know if I can get my excitement level back for him specifically. Still excited about this team. Love to see the development of Bryson Tiller alongside Flory and the way Melvin's just taken over. But this team definitely better with him for sure. But what's the ceiling of this team if Darren Peterson continues to have these lingering issues, or God forbid they shut him down at some point?
I mean, right away, if I'm thinking Final Four, right? I mean, if he plays the entire time, I think this team is substantially better with him. I mean, he's a walking 20, 22 points, right? And teams
without even trying.
I know. And teams game plan for that, right? I mean, the most minutes he's played, I think, was 31 against
NC State game.
State. Other than that, we haven't seen him play over 30, right? And he still was putting up 22 points per game. And, he's shooting lights out. He's so good at getting in those passing lanes on the defensive side of the ball. Bill did come out and say that it was a little funky practicing with Darren all week, and then all of a sudden game time comes along and you don't have him, right? And it changes the way that this Kansas team plays, right? And Trey White, I think, is a prime example of this. If you look at the 4 games that Kansas has played with Darren Peterson, Trey White has been almost a non-factor in a lot of those games because it's just different, because he doesn't have to put the ball on the ground and get to the rim and get the free throws. And it's just a different style of play. But at the same time, it's good that he's practicing, because a lot of those guys do still understand what it's like to play with DP, but just not in a game-like setting. Obviously, it's weird to say that, it's going to make the team worse if you have the potential number 1 overall draft pick of the NBA draft coming back and playing. It's a weird thing to say, but it almost makes a little bit of sense, at least in the very short term, like those first couple of games when he is working his way back, right? You might see some stinkers out of guys like Melvin Council. You see some stinkers out of Trey White. I mean, it's just going to be a little bit different, right? In the NC State game, when he was playing, the offense was stale and they were sticking and they were settling for shots and they weren't as fast paced. And then all of a sudden, Bill Self even addressed that. He said it's just it was stale and they were sticking and they were still kind of adjusting to playing with DP out there. And then you look at the next game against Towson, complete 180. Next game against Davidson, complete 180. But Darren Peterson wasn't in that game. So they play a little differently, right?
Yeah.
Melvin doesn't have to put the ball on the floor as much when Darren's out there. Same with Trey, right? Flory plays a different role whenever Darren's out there too, because, and I think it spreads the floor out a lot more. I think you're going to see a lot more pull-up shots from guys. I think it could be a beneficial thing for like Cole Rosario, where teams are going to be
100%.
Help out on Darren. All of a sudden he's kicking it out. Cole's wide open for a 3-pointer. That style of player, the spot up shooter, I think works well in a Darren Peterson ran offense. Whereas where you are right now, not right now, but without Darren Peterson, it didn't really work that much because you had so many drives and so much ball movement, and it was just a little different. But I mean, all in all, if he comes back, like a lot of KU fans have had this pinpointed as the game that he better come back. You know what I mean? It's like, hey,
he's had 11 days off in between.
Yeah.
Well, 11 days in between games. He hasn't played in a game in 3.5 weeks. I know, bigger picture, hamstrings, whatever he's going through. Hamstrings could take anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks. So we're kind of within that time frame, but he's had a lot of rest now.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, that's the thing is like, talking with these guys and talking with the coaches and talking with Darren Peterson, the kid wants to play. I mean, he's not here to steal anybody's money. He's not here to just sit out and wait for the NBA draft. He's not that kind of guy, right? He's a down-to-earth, like you would not expect him to be as big of a public figure as he is just by the way that he presents himself, right? He's a very humble guy. All he wants to do is play basketball, man. And he just can't. And it sucks. Dealing with cramps is something that, weirdly enough, like rest does help. But at the same time, you need to take care of your body during that resting time. You need to rehydrate. You need to do whatever. And we've seen guys in the past deal with cramps too, like Paolo Banchero, Cooper Flagg, even Malik Newman, right? I mean, we saw him eating mustard packets on the sideline. So there are things that you can do, and Darren and his squad, and I know this from sources, they've been reaching out to literally everybody, not even just in Lawrence. They've been reaching out to doctors at Harvard and Oxford, like two schools where if I walked on campus, they'd call security. That's so they're doing everything that they possibly can to get him back into playing shape, and Darren wants to be out there.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely some of it too. Because like Self will say, yeah, he looks good in practice, things are going well, but game speed is so much different than practice speed. Even if you're going 100% in practice, it's against guys who know you and are comfortable with you, and it's easier to to maybe make a certain cut that you wouldn't normally do in a game. And it's like that's like I'm wouldn't be shocked if he does play the next couple of games that there's some moments of rust because there hasn't been that rhythm. And even though he's world talent, one of the best in the game, and if he's playing consistently, he's going to showcase that. But there is something to the chemistry you have with the guys around you. I mean, offensive or in the NFL and football in general, they talk a lot about this with offensive linemen. It's not always about the 5 best offensive linemen you have. It's about the 5 guys that gel the best together and can execute the game plan. And again, we've seen this KU team. Now the offense hasn't been perfect without DP, and we know that there are times where like, man, you really need Darren out there to initiate something. But these guys have found ways to step up and play maybe above expectations or above their anticipated roles at the start of the year because of him not playing. And what you don't want to see is he gets back out there and then those guys become timid. They become less aggressive, less confident in their play style, and they defer because Darren's the guy. So it's going to be interesting. I'm still questioning the legitimacy of his health. Like I still would not be shocked if he misses 3 to 4 more games this year, or limited time here, or he looks really good and then second half he sits for a few minutes and he's tight coming back. I don't know what it is. It's one of the more like shocking medical things, not even shocking, but like confusing medical things that we've seen in college basketball or basketball as a whole. You don't have many examples to point to and go, oh, he looks good today, but not tomorrow. It's like the opposite of the Remy Martin effect. Coach can't practice. Oh, knee's bad. Oh, game day, I'm ready. Put me in, coach. I'm ready. And we all know how it took 3 months of that before Remy and coach were on the same page for sure. But with him back, this team has a high ceiling. They're still projected to finish, I think, 6th in the Big 12. They have plus 1,400 odds to win the Big 12 right now, something like that, against a deep roster of Big 12 teams, but plus 1,400 Kansas basketball to win the Big 12. That's a hard thing to pass up.
Yeah,
100%.
As we look at the Big 12 right now, I know I haven't watched as much of the other teams this year as I would have liked so far. Not that we're going to really deep dive preview of the Big 12 here, but Iowa State, Houston, really, really good. Arizona, really, really good. Oklahoma State, off to a tremendous start. UCF, good start. I mean, really all of the Big 12 for the overall is off to a pretty good start. But like if the season were to end tomorrow and assuming Darren Peterson's healthy, like what do you think this team would look like in a Big 12 tournament run? Who's the best team in the Big 12?
I mean, it's you got to look at it and you got to think it's Arizona right now. I mean, just because they're the number one team, and I talked about this on my show that I think Michigan is by far and away the best team, but you also cannot, like, Arizona was in that number one spot, and you can't punish them for not losing essentially in flip flop. But Yaxel Lindenberg is just,
oh my goodness,
unbelievable. But Arizona is still unbelievable as well. Koa Pete, who could have seen this coming, right? I mean, he's just been phenomenal all year long, and they have so many great pieces on that squad as well. UCF, which obviously is going on tomorrow, they're 11-1, which is strange because they have 5 starters who 2 of them have played together, but on a different team at Milwaukee, right? Thelmus Folks, who is 5th in the nation in assists per game. He's averaging 7.2 assists per game on a brand new squad of guys who have never played with each other. That to you tells you right there that they have chemistry right away. Now, they haven't played anybody. You know, their one loss is to Vanderbilt, who is good, but they were unranked at the time. Their best wins against the Texas A&M Fighting Jayhawks, who Clemens and Rylan Griffin, both starting for them. They're not good, right? They beat a 7-7 Pitt team. Other than that, they're playing the Little Sisters of the Blind and Hofstra and Florida Gulf Coast, and you know they haven't played anybody. So a lot of these schools, I think the Big 12, at least the top of the Big 12, does a really good job of scheduling these hard P4, P5 opponents. But the middle to lower tier of the Big 12, including some of the newer members of the Big 12, you take Utah, UCF, I'm still considering them a newer member, right? A lot of these teams don't go out of their way to schedule a really tough non-con. So it's literally impossible to tell how good these guys are. I watched one UCF game this year where they were, I think it was a Florida Gulf Coast game, and they didn't look great. I mean, they were fine, right? And they have some prolific scorers. They have that Georgetown transfer who was at Kentucky, I think his freshman year, whose name
former Jayhawk who never stepped foot. Well, I guess who never made it into uniform. Riley Kugel.
Oh man, that's right. Yeah, he was their leading scorer until last game. I mean they have good pieces, but that's the weird thing is that looking at the middle to lower tier, the Big 12 teams in terms of like name bias. A lot of them have good records right now. Who knows what that's going to look like 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks from now, whenever, you know, they're actually playing in Big 12 play. I think looking at the Big 12, like it's abundantly clear that there is a top of the top where it's Arizona, Iowa State, Houston. I'll throw Tech in there, even though they've looked a little shaky at times, and then KU. And then the rest of them, good records, but they're just, we don't know.
Yeah. Well, and the nice thing for KU outside of that Iowa State game, again, not that any game on the schedule for the Big 12 is easy. They've got a decently favorable first half stretch. That back half is just wild. You go from Arizona to a week later at Iowa State, then at Oklahoma State, which no matter how good or bad they are, we always struggle in that game. Then you got Houston a couple days later, Arizona again, and then K-State to finish the year. That first half, though, I mean, KU realistically, you know, especially if Darren Peterson's playing, I mean, they could start out 4-1, 5-2 in Big 12 play going into that stretch. And you got to think, I mean, as good as Iowa State looks, as good as Arizona looks, and Houston looks, I would be very impressed if any team comes out of the Big 12 with less than 4 or 5 losses. And if KU can, you know, get through the first stretch with 1 or 2, that would put them still squarely in the conversation to win the Big 12. Because some of these teams, I haven't dove into the other 3, how much their schedule looks like, but they got to beat each other up at some point. And why not Kansas? I mean, that's the crazy thing. Without Darren Peterson playing, we truly have no idea how good this team is. We're going off of what we see on the court, and what we see on the court is they're decent. They're still an above average. They're a top 25 team, still lesser than our expectations here at Kansas, but they're still a team that's certainly capable. Ken Pom has them ranked fairly high defensively without Darren Peterson. Obviously, you think that'll continue to go up with them on the court, and offensively they'll get better too. It's like this is a team that is a major question mark as long as Darren Peterson's out. And then as soon as he's back, if he's consistently healthy and plays the rest of the season, you can't sit here and tell me that KU is not going to be in the mix for, Big 12 title when it's all said and done. I mean, DeBonta looks really good. BYU looks really good offensively. Iowa State's always a nightmare, but they're prone to make a few mistakes here. And Arizona, who knows? Again, as their competition intensifies with Big 12 play and they have to go on the road to these big road environments, this is it's a gauntlet of the Big 12 schedule for sure. Easily the deepest conference in college basketball by far. I think just off the top of my head, I think we have 5 teams in the top 25, but 3 of them are top 10 or something like that. Which 5 in the top 25 isn't that much in the bigger grand scheme of things, but very, very top heavy. And the top heavy teams are like 3 of the 5 best teams in college basketball. So it's going to be important first couple of weeks here, especially with Darren getting back in the fold to build some rhythm, build some momentum and some chemistry with him now while the games are lighter games, I guess, so that when it comes time for the toughest part of the schedule, they're moving full steam ahead.
The Big 12 has 6 in the top 25, and 3 of them are in the top 10. 2 of them are in the top 3.
Yeah.
It's Michigan, it's Arizona and Iowa State are right there. So,
and if KU starts off 5-1, we're probably talking about them in the top 12, top 10 as well.
Which I guess I was wrong. Michigan did jump Arizona, so Michigan is number 1. I guess I didn't check the latest.
Michigan's they're insane. They're scoring 100 a night and have the best defense.
Yeah, no, they are unbelievable, and Elliot Cadeau and Yaxel Lindbergh is so insane to me that he was just marinating at UAB. And he was playing the 5. He was playing center, and now he's a shooting guard. The best shooting guard in the country at the number 1 school in the nation. He's 6'10", and it's just, that guy is different.
So is he a guy that definitely helped his case coming back to school versus going pro?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think that. I mean, looking at him right now, I mean, he's a higher lottery pick. I mean, he could have been looked at as a lottery pick, and they could have developed him in the NBA. But I think he's making pretty good money too. Like he didn't hurt himself financially, that's for sure.
Yeah, wild times college basketball is right now, but that's all I have. I don't have really any other thoughts on basketball, football right now. Austin, you got anything else on your mind?
I mean, I've got one thing on my mind. I just wanted to go back to the schedule. I really like who Kansas has home and away this year. Obviously, yes. It's an even split with 9 home games and 9 away games. We're not doing 20 games this year. Thank goodness. I hated the 20-game schedule last year, and I think everybody did. And with the way that season played out last year, it was very, very evident that it was too much for the players, especially for the coaches too. I mean, I go back to when we went on our little trip in Utah when we played Utah and BYU, and how frustrating that was, and how coach after the game against BYU was like, yeah, we just need to get away from each other. And like hearing that right away, I mean, oh my God, dude.
And coaches rarely ever talk like that. You're dissing on your players.
That was crazy, and hopefully we don't have another episode like that. But I really love the fact that we don't play at Houston this year. We don't play at BYU. We don't play at
Baylor's home game.
We're playing at West Virginia this year in a couple of weeks, I do believe. So that game will be tough, regardless of how good West Virginia is to start off Big 12 play. And then Oklahoma State, we talked about that for a second. I mean, that's going to be a tough game. And I thought we defeated Oklahoma State by like 30 points last time we visited there. Maybe I'm wrong, but it has been a struggle for Kansas and Stillwater. Am I correct about that? Was it a blowout last time you were in Stillwater?
Sounds right. One of the last 3 games.
I mean, but this year's Oklahoma State team's really, really good. I mean, I watched the Bedlam game. Oklahoma ended up winning that game, but it was back and forth. And Oklahoma State's offense is unbelievable. I mean, when we get to that game in February, I mean, if they're hitting shots left and right, which I feel like every single opponent that we play on the road just hits the craziest shots and puts up 20 million 3-pointers on us. It's just, exhausting, but hopefully that didn't happen to us in that game. But I really like who we have home and away this year. And I'm just thankful we aren't playing at Houston, Baylor and all these other guys. So I like who we have on our schedule.
Yeah, that was a big break for sure.
If KU comes out with a winning record on the road, I'm counting that as a win. I think where they have 9 road games, come out 5-4. I'm feeling okay about it. You
go undefeated at home, 5-4 on the road. Yeah, that would put you right there in Big 12 title talks for sure.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, which road game this season do you guys think will be the toughest?
Arizona.
I
mean, honestly, it could be Texas Tech too on a Monday.
Arizona's the last game of the year, right?
No, third to last. They go at Arizona, Arizona State a couple days later, and then home for K-State.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that one's gonna suck.
But the Arizona game comes 5 days after Houston at home.
Right, that's a tough stretch. I mean,
at Iowa State on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, Ames is always
gonna have our hearts broken that day,
or we could be breaking the hearts.
With Keegan though, you gotta think it's Arizona.
Or here's the other one: Texas Tech. You go on the road to Texas Tech 2 days after BYU at home. So you go Saturday, BYU at home. Saturday night game or Saturday afternoon to Big Monday down in Tech.
Yeah, that's going to be difficult. I think KU can pull it off, but I mean, it just depends on how good they do against BYU. But that might be the
now. KU's going to see 4 of the top 15 teams in a 5-game stretch.
See, but yeah, you got K-State January 24th, then BYU at home, then Tech on the road. Then you have Utah, which could be a bye game, but we never know. And then Arizona, and then Iowa State. That is an impossible 3-game stretch because KU never plays good at Bramlage, at least in the last few years.
PJ Haggerty's going off for 45 that night.
Yeah, no kidding.
Somebody's going to make a half-court shot too. Good Lord.
Austin, we should look at going to that game. I've told myself
I don't think I'm going to go.
I want to go to KU State.
Absolutely not. Have you seen ticket prices for that game?
No, it's always too much.
If you want, somebody is trying to sell their tickets on there for like $3,000. Why in the hell would I go to a college basketball game for $3,000?
Yeah, right now on ESPN, it's got the ticket prices. Lowest ticket price $217.
What are we doing?
What? I mean, are you going to be on the bench? Like that's like. If I'm paying $3,000, I better be playing in the game.
Here, let me pull up.
I better have my company's name on the jerseys as an NIL deal.
I'm not kidding, dude. Like here, I've got it right here. This it's row 4. It's row 4 for $3,000.
They better feel the sweat from Tang fly off on
3,700. So it's closer to 4K.
That's their Super Bowl. I mean.
Absolutely.
That's going to be the biggest game of the year, other than their second round exit in the NIT.
I mean, they gotta freaking upsell the ticket prices for that game so that way
to offset everything else.
Money by the end of the year, because they can't make enough money in basketball now. So.
Well, that's the thing is Jerome Tang is and that's another conversation, I guess. But he's soaking all the farmers of their NIL money, and it's just he's the exact opposite of Bruce Weber. And I never thought I'd give Bruce Weber a compliment, but Jerome Tang is an excellent recruiter and can do absolutely nothing with that talent. Where Bruce Weber is the exact opposite. He was horrible at recruiting, but he was a great X's and O's coach.
Yeah, like again, nothing against like a guy like Barry Brown, but Barry Brown does not have the career he has if he goes elsewhere.
Oh, absolutely not.
He developed.
And here's the thing: he's the prime example of why I think that there's a bubble in all this NIL. I know we were about ready to wrap up, but real quick, it's like there's going to be donor fatigue at some point. There's a bubble that will burst. People are going to stop giving K-State money for basketball so he can stop spending $2 million on Coleman Hawkins, right? And that's just one, that's it in a microcosm, right? There's plenty of other schools who are circulating so much NIL money and they're not getting to that point. And it's such a big game of like, okay, well, Texas Tech, they have, well, whoever it is, Corey Campbell or Cody Campbell or whatever his name is.
Yep.
Yeah, he's throwing out millions and millions of dollars. There's going to be a breaking point where some schools are going to be like, we can't, or some donors are going to be like, we can't do that. And again, I don't think fans should be footing the bill. And I think that we are moving in the right direction in terms of rev share. I think the schools in the NCAA should be playing these players. Nobody's watching college basketball games to watch Charlie freaking Baker. You know what I mean? Like, he's making a ton of money off of all these kids who they're not seeing a dime of the NCAA's revenue. So I think the fans should not be footing the bill. It should be the NCAA and the schools, and it's moving in that direction finally. And they're setting caps, which I think is good. Yes. But it's still, there is a bubble it's going to burst. And
if it's not donor fatigue, it's going to be the other end of that where they want so much control over like, hey, I want to now have a voice in the coaching hire. Like, I want to be in the conversation with the decision makers.
Yeah, it's almost like
I want to bring a player in. I want to sit down with this player and do the recruiting pitch myself because I'm paying the bill. Like, there's going to be that ugly mess, which is why this hasn't been in college athletics for as long as it has, and how going back to the 90s, the NIL stuff with O'Bannon, like, this is why it's taken so long to get to this point, because the intention of getting the players taken care of, great intention, but there's all the underlying outside things that impact to where, here at Kansas, we're blessed to have a David Booth, the Anderson family, where they've donated so much time and energy and money, but they're also, like, David Booth literally owns Kansas athletics. He is, at least to the public, has never come in and been this demanding billionaire who's like, I've given you all this money, do this, do that, do that. KU in turn has been like, hey, we'll just put your name on everything, whether you ask for it or not. Like, there's going to be those universities that are going, hey, I've shelled out $25 million over the last 4 or 5 years, football, basketball, whatever. You've done nothing with it. Why should I? Because I would love, again, I've been trying for months to get people that are in the NIL game to come on and talk. I just haven't found the right person yet, but I would love to see the numbers from some of those businesses that, like, do they run a profit for, if I spend $20 million in NIL donations over the next 2 years, what's the return for my company? Like, is it really doing enough that I'm the official sponsor of such and such to get this player? Yeah, my fandom gets excited because I'm helping pay for this roster. But, like, as a business, what is the business advantage from a marketing standpoint? Because there's only so many things you can sponsor to where, we sit here, we could sit here and rattle off all the sponsors KU has, but how much of that really impacts me as a consumer spending my dollars with said companies that are sponsors? So I think, you're going to get to that point where the collectives are all, they're not drying up, but they're fizzling out. It's getting more structured, and it's going to be more corporate sponsorships to the team, and then the team, or to the athletic program, and the team turns around and divvies things up. What I don't want to see, which is where we're at right now, is renegotiation of contracts to stay at said school. Like, this is not a professional league. It shouldn't be, we've agreed to terms with Joe Smith to return at this dollar amount for next season. Like, that feels wrong. Again, Darren Peterson as an example, whether the concerns with his health were real or not, he's making a lot of money. Our donors going to get to the point too of, hey, you are going to get paid based on the amount of time you play, the amount of games you play in, point totals, all those incentive-based contracts you get in professional sports. Are we going to see that starting to come in too? Because if I'm paying you to be here, you got to play. Or is it going to be the flip side where we're seeing former KU football players coming out and saying, I was promised this, didn't get this? Or GM, who I'm not, we know who, but GM said they were going to make sure this happened for me, and donor paid this to do this NIL deal with me, and I never saw the fields. Like, there's going to be more mess to this until solutions come about, but players are being taken care of for sure. And while that's good for them, it has hurt the sport. Again, I've been saying this when it comes to recruiting, like I don't know how on earth a coach goes into a living room and recruits now, because if I was a kid, even in today's world, and Bill Self walks in my living room and says, "Hey, do you want to come play at Kansas?" 100%. Now it's who's Kansas?
Yeah.
What's the dollar amount? 1.2. Joe Schmo University over here is going to give me 2.5. Why should I come to Kansas? Well, you can't just recruit off of the name alone anymore. The history of the program. It's all these kids care about is a dollar amount. Half of them don't grow up with a team that they've been rooting for their whole life. It's traveling AAU teams, so they're playing all across the country, and it's definitely damaged the game for the fans. I think the sport itself is still doing just fine. They're making plenty of money. The players are making money now, but I think to the fan, you're really starting to see the frustrations of why should I buy your jersey? You're not going to be here next year. I don't want to buy a jersey for a guy that might be here a year, if that, and might not even play much. So how do I fall in love with the team when the faces change as quickly as they do?
There was that Missouri player who's getting sued by Georgia right now, $390,000 because he signed a contract for $400,000. They paid him $10,000 of it. Then he transferred out. Georgia's suing him for the remainder of that because he technically broke his contract. I'm not saying you should, fleece these 19, 20-year-old kids, but at the same time, it's like the only feasible way. And again, I'm with you. It's weird, and I'm not totally on board with it turning into essentially professional. But the only kind of way you can kind of put the worms back in the can is with contracts, and they have to, abide by those contracts. And
if you want out of your contract, there's a buyout. You pay back. If you want to transfer out because you're not happy here anymore, well, guess what? You owe us the rest of your contract.
Right, exactly. And I'm usually not the kind of guy who's like, let's make college sports more litigious. But at the same time, it's like that's kind of what needs to happen.
Yeah,
like
because it's a business.
Yeah, it is.
Otherwise, I would love to see I hate the open transfer rule. You can transfer as many times as you want. I didn't like it the way it was back in the old days too. Like it wasn't fair that your coach left, so you transfer, but now you have to sit out a whole year. Give them their first time transfer is fair game. If they're transferring up a level, if they're transferring down a level, they don't have to sit out. But if you're transferring at the same level the next year, guess what? You're sitting out a year, or there's some sort of consequence for changing teams. Like whether it's, hey, you're coming to Kansas, we're not signing you for here's your scholarship. Like again, that's part of it too. I know Calipari had some fantastic comments this week too about it, and he was like, we've just completely lost it. This is a student athlete, and that they're on scholarship and all that stuff. But like to the same degree, it's like, okay, you are coming here. We're going to sign you to our intention is to sign you to a 2-year deal. Here's the stipulations you have to fulfill. Here's the stipulations we have to fulfill. And then here's laid out how you get out of this deal. Either we fail to meet such and such standards throughout this process, you fail to meet such and such standards throughout this process, or whatever the case may be. But it can't just be this free will, willy-nilly, because now you're going to turn into, well, I recruited this kid out of high school. We lost him to said school, but we've been able to stay in contact all season. And now that he's available, we're gonna go steal him because again, DJ Warner, I think, is a great example. Tremendously talented kid coming out of high school. This will now be his 3rd stop in 3 years for football, and his career's kind of been derailed because of it. From a playing perspective, is he probably making good money for himself? Yeah, but his playing career hasn't gotten any better in that time frame. So very messy, very messy.
Back, though.
I would take his talent level back. I don't know if that's I have thought about that. Like, can you complain about the portal, but then like, again, I think I said this last week. We were comparing things to relationships. Like, would you go back to your ex if they wronged you, but now they say they're available to you again?
Yeah, I mean that's a good
point. Not the perfect example there, but these guys left you. Do you want them back?
Also, it's like we're taking advantage of it. Even though we're complaining about it, it's like that's something that I do praise Lance for. Is he's done such a good job in the portal, and you learn to love the guys that you do get in the portal, and he's playing the game and he's playing it well. We can complain about it, but at the same time, it is benefiting Kansas. And without the portal, I don't think Kansas goes to back-to-back bowl games in 22 and 23. I don't think JD gets any kind of wide receivers over these last few years, or anybody on the defensive side of the ball. You're talking, offensive lineman. Bryce Foster's not there. Like,
Yeah.
without the portal, Kansas doesn't become. There's no hope. Essentially, that's why I think Lance has done a really good job. So it's hard to like we're complaining about it. I'm complaining about it. I don't like it either. But at the same time, it's like you got to play the game, and we're playing it well. That's kind of the same with Scott Drew in terms of that kid who got drafted 31st overall. It's like, look, he's playing the game. Credit to him for trying, and he did it.
You should try. You should do everything possible to make your roster. That's why I was on Twitter earlier, and I think it was Seth Davis tweeted something out, and then Fran Fraschilla tweeted back at him, and of course can't stand Fran, but like Seth's point was, why are you getting all mad? Like the coaches, they don't know the rules. It's like, no, they probably do know the rules, or they have somebody on their staff whose job is to know the rules. Like you can't sit here and tell me that a college basketball doesn't have a recruiting coordinator who doesn't understand the rules that are there. Whether the rules are murky, they're great, or there's not enough of them, there is somebody on that staff who is paid to understand every advantage possible in the NIL game. The Patriots mastered this in the NFL. They found loopholes to every rule possible. Whether you agree with how they did it or not, the fact is they looked into the rule book and they found ways. I think back to that, I think it was Patriots Jets, where Bill Belichick just kept taking those delay of games with the punting to draw things out. And you can just see him on the smile. The other side's getting pissed about it. He's just sitting there, got this half smile because he's taking advantage of the rules.
Titans, I think.
Titans,
Vrabel's on the other side.
That's right. So you can't blame the coaches for trying and then also say you need more rules or they don't understand. Like I don't think a coach can get out there and say, well, I don't understand the rules. No, you understand the rules enough to go out and try these things, which they should. But just further proves that there's not enough rules, there's not enough structure, there needs to be some clarity. Guys that have not used any college eligibility but are playing professionally elsewhere have never been allowed to come play. Now you're seeing all these international players that are playing overseas, decide to come to a prep year school for 1 year, even though they're out of high school, but they can go to a prep academy and then they can come play. Like there's a kid, he just signed today with somebody on the West Coast. He's going to sit out the whole year, but he's going to be eligible for college basketball next year. But he's like 22 years old from playing overseas. It's a mess. It does keep guys that are fringe NBA talent in the league longer at the college level. But at the same time, you're then taking away those opportunities from other guys. So they might as well just go back to the old days where you could go straight out of high school to the league, or you could come to school. But if you came to school, you had to play 2 years. You had to be, going into your junior year before you could declare for the draft or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I liked it when, you like if you chose to go pro right out of high school, like that was it. Like you couldn't play in college. Like that was your decision, But unfortunately, like you said, everybody around the country is finding these loopholes, just like Baylor and.
Well, NCAA created loopholes. Now these kids have agents in high school. They're just marketing agents because they're earning NIL money in high school for future opportunities. And back in the day, you couldn't sign an agent because if you did, it meant you were foregoing your amateurism status. But anyway, a lot of good stuff tonight. Andy Kotelnicki's back. That's the main piece takeaway from this. KU football is potentially saved, because I did not want to see what next year was going to be with the way things were sitting. So hopefully Kotelnicki gets in here. They figure out the structure. They get some guys on this roster. They center things around whoever their quarterback is of the future. And then we can transition into what's next, whether that's head coach in waiting and maybe Leipold retires in a year. Maybe that's the next conversation we have. But this is definitely a big positive for the program, step in the right direction, and should have many more positive domino effects coming off of it. So appreciate, Dan, you hopping on with us for this. Look forward to next time we have you on for sure. Looking forward to college basketball this weekend. It's felt like, I know it's only been 11 days, but it feels like KU hasn't had a basketball game in over a month. Not a fan of that. Not a fan of the shut down college basketball for school. Football's still going, but there's no basketball happening. So not a fan of that, but hopefully we see DP on the court tomorrow. He drops 25 and just shuts us all up for doubting that he was capable of getting back. But we'll wrap up there. We appreciate everybody joining us on this one. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe button below if you haven't done so yet. Give us a follow, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok at KCSA Pod. And we will catch you guys in the next episode. Rock Chalk.
Rock Chalk.